Even if you want to run away from something, it's because you're very close to it. If you're far away from it, you just ignore it. If you're running away from it, it means you feel that it's running after you in some way. Either way, it's an affinity. It could be a positive affinity that I'm attracted to it. It could be a negative affinity that I'm repelled by it. This video was made possible through the kind support of my sponsors over at Patreon. Patreon is a great way to help independent creators like myself produce original content. If you'd like to get more English language videos from me, please consider becoming a supporter via Patreon. You can find the link in the description below. Thank you very much. We want to talk about decision making and how to make good choices, good decisions. In a way, that has become the hardest thing in the world in our generation. In a way, that's the most difficult thing we're facing. And there are many reasons for this, but I would say probably the simplest reason we can all point out to is because we're overwhelmed with choices and options. We live in a world of plenty, of wealth, of technological advance, and this is an amazing boon and blessing, clearly, but it has its downside. And the downside is that we're flooded with constant information, a barrage of people and things and applications offering us all the options in the world. Everything is open. We can do whatever we want. And there's something paralyzing about this. There was a book out a few years ago. It was called the Freedom, I think it was called The Freedom Paradox, or The Paradox of Choice. And what it said at the very beginning was that obviously when you have no options, then you can't talk about being free. Free means you have some options. You're not trapped, you're not handcuffed, you have some options in front of you. So there's a minimum amount of options for you to become free. But it turns out there's also a kind of maximum, because if you have too many options, then once again, you lose your freedom. That's the paradox of choice. When you have too many choices, too many options, you lose it. You become paralyzed, and you lose it before you do the choice, and as you're doing the choice, and after you did the choice, because you're thinking, maybe I did the wrong thing. And we all heard that there are expressions that people use today. One of them is FOMO, which is fear of missing out. And the other one is PHOBO, which is the fear of a better option. And the more you go into this, it all leads to one place, which we can call it FOGO, which is finding out the game is over. You find out at some point your life is over, the game is over, and you didn't do anything substantial because you were standing and debating what you should do. So this is our dilemma today. This is our problem today. How to make good choices. What does it mean to choose? So if the problem begins on the outside, it begins with so many things around us, tempting us, and the world became so small and so full of opportunities, then the solution must come from the inside. It must come from the inside, because we're not going to get the answers as to what is the best thing to do in each and every juncture from the juncture itself, because every option is shouting, take me, or sometimes it appears to be shouting, don't take me. But that doesn't mean anything. The only way you can make good choices if you know to be connected in a healthy way, in a deep way, in a quiet way, to a kind of inner compass and inner root, soul root that you have within you. And then if you listen to that, and it doesn't shout like the outside world shouts, it whispers. We need to learn how to listen to this inner whisper, and then what to do with this whisper, how to develop it and open it up. And then if we're able to do that, if we're able to practice that, then we will be able to make good choices, because we will be able to identify and recognize what belongs to us and what doesn't belong to us, and what we can contribute to. It's not only what we get out of it, it's also what we give it. But it all hinges on being connected to who you are and what your purpose in life is. And so for this purpose, that's what we want to talk about tonight. And so before we go into this page that I handed out here, if you don't have this page, then Shlomo in the back has all the remaining pages. I just want to say, like, as an introductory remark to all this, is sometimes if you want to, not sometimes, every time really, one of the principles we learned from Rabbi Ginsburgh is that when you focus on a topic, learn a topic, you want to understand really what it means, what it's all about, the best starting point is to find the precise Hebrew word for that thing, right? Because Hebrew is not a conventional language. Literally, it's not conventional. It's not a product of human convention that people agreed to use certain words for certain things. But it's Lashon HaKodesh. It's the holy tongue. That's a fundamental faith in Judaism. And therefore, the word reflects the essence of that thing. Even, by the way, it would even go for modern Hebrew words sometimes, because if by divine providence, a certain word, which is always based on some more ancient or foundational root, every modern Hebrew word is based on some classical Hebrew word. If that word became the word that's used, it means something. It's like the hashgacha pratit. But in this case, the word is very simple. The word is bechira. Bechira. And this word gives us immediately a few things. So one thing it gives us is, we talked about the world seducing us. Bechira, if you change the letters a little bit, it becomes bricha. Bricha is escape, running away from something. The root letters are bachar, that's to choose, and barach, that's to run away from something. Choice is the opposite of running away, in a way. If we're making hasty choices, or we're trying to take everything at once, to do everything at once, not to miss out on anything, so to do everything at once, we're running away from the question, what do we really, really need to choose? That's the first little thing we get out of this. Another thing is that the same combination of letters that has to do with bricha, right? The root is barach, that's to run away. But there's another interesting neutral word that is not negative, that's coming from the same root of barach, and that is bariach. Bariach is like when the tabernacle was built and they had all the planks of wood that would make up the walls of the tabernacle, to put them together, long staffs of wood were taken and sort of put in through them, and they would hold them together. In old doors, you had this thing that you used to lock the door with. How do you call it? That big plank of wood that you would use to... Sorry?
Latch.
A latch. It's not a latch. There's another word for bariach. I'm sure there's an English word for it, but maybe I'll remember it afterwards. So bariach, in this case, is this staff of wood that you slide it through the holes of the planks, and that holds them together. And there were several on top and on the bottom, but on the side there was one long one. This was called bariach hatichon, the middle staff or axis that put everything together. And according to a simple reading of the way the tabernacle was built, each side of the tabernacle had one middle axis, bariach hatichon. But there's another explanation in Chazal that there was a miraculous staff that used to go in, and in a miraculous way, in a supernatural way, it would bend until it created the shape of a chet, the shape of like a pi sign. And it would go like this. So it was wooden, but it was also, it was flexible. It was strong and flexible at the same time. Now the idea we get from all this is we too have a bariach tichon. Bariach tichon is like our spinal cord, the central axis of our being. And it leads from the top of our heads to the bottom of our bodies. And it goes to the very center. And that's like the spinal cord. And so choices have to do with being connected to the central axis of your being. You don't tilt to one side or the other side, or you do, but then you're able to balance it and to find the central axis, the bariach hatichon. So if you're connected to the bariach hatichon, you're able to make choices. Now, we said we're talking about the central axis, and of course there are three major organs that in Kabbalah and Chassidut are They appear again and again, and they're very, very vital to the whole idea of making good choices. And that would be the moach, the lev, and the kaved. These are terms from the Zohar. The moach is the brain, the intellect, the head. The lev is the heart, the emotions. And finally, the word kaved is the liver, right? We're talking about the liver, but the liver is here, it symbolizes the entire lower torso or lower abdomen of what we could call gut feelings. So the expression from the Zohar, and this is like the first rule, in a way, of making good choices, is that the way this should be built is that the moach needs to be shalit, to be in charge of the heart. Moach shalit al halev. And this is, of course, a well-known term. But the continuation of the same phrase in the Zohar is lev shalit al kaved. The heart should rule the liver, or be in charge of the liver. Moach lev kaved. The intellect needs to govern or guide the emotions. You have a lot of emotions, but the heart is relatively speaking, it's short-sighted. So the head needs to be the one to guide it and lead it and tell it where it's better to go. But the heart is also governing. The heart is governing the lower instincts or desires that are embodied in the liver. And this is the heart ruling the instincts. Lev shalit ala kaved. So if your head is in the right place, it can guide your feelings. It can develop certain feelings, and it can make other feelings die out, and that's a good thing. And very beautifully, interestingly, your feelings can affect your desires. If you're emotionally drawn to something or someone, then the fabric of your desires, what you're attracted to, what you're not attracted to, that can change. Sometimes, if you're in the dating world and you meet someone and you think they're beautiful and very attractive, but you don't get along emotionally, they become less attractive. This is the heart influencing the liver. Again, liver standing for all the instincts and desires. And also the other way around. If someone at first sight could seem not the most beautiful person in the world, sometimes a few hours later, you have an amazing conversation. By the time the conversation is over, you can't believe how beautiful they are. And so the heart can influence, can govern the instincts or the desires. Now, if you take these three organs together, moach, lev, kaved, then the acronym is melech, king, which is the root of malka also. So melech, malka, melech is the moach. When the moach governs the lev and the lev governs the kaved, then your central axis is in place, and you're like a king, and you can make the best choices in the world. We talked about a major choice is choosing your spouse. And how do we call an unmarried man and an unmarried woman? They're called bachur and bachura. It's the same root as bchira. In a way, what is a bachur? A bachur is someone who was chosen by the bachura. Bachur means chosen. The bachur is chosen by the bachura, and the bachura is chosen by the bachur. But they have to have the moach in charge of the lev and the lev in charge of the kaved. If it's the other way around, and this is the thing to be careful not to be there. The other way around means that your heart governs your head, and worse, your liver can govern your heart. This is the worst thing that can be, and that creates the word kalim. It doesn't sound like a word, but it is. First, it's the root of the word klum, which is nothing. So you become like a klumnik. It's nothing. It would lead you nowhere. If your liver, your instincts, your desires guide your feelings, and your feelings guide your head, the head comes last. But it's not only that. There's a midrash that says that Bil'am, the prophet, the wicked prophet, that was hired by Balak to curse the Jewish people, he failed. But the midrash says that he needed to capture a moment, a single instant in the day, in each day, 24-hour day, there's an instant that God is angry. It's a fraction of an instant. It's not even an instant, it's a fraction of an instant. And God is judgmental and angry at that moment. And Bil'am needed to aim the curse at the exact moment, or find that place. So he needed to find a very short curse. And what was the curse? It was kalim. Kalim is extinguish them, turn them into klaya. Klaya is that they're gone. It's like destroy them. You can say that in 3 letters in Hebrew. It's a bit weird Hebrew, but it's absolutely okay Hebrew. Kalim is destroy them. So Kalem is the acronym of Kaved, Lev, and Moach. Now Chassidut added one thing. So Chassidut gets this, and it's based on the Zohar. And of course, Moach Shalit al Lev is a very basic phrase from the Tanya also. It's said there more than once. But Chassidut, if you feel what Chassidut is all about, then obviously the Lev has to rule the Kaved, that's okay. But Moach Shalit al Lev, I'm not so sure, because sometimes the heart knows best, knows more than the head. The head is too intellectual, and it's too remote, and it's too neutral. So the Chassid would read the Zohar, it says, Moach Shalit al Leva. He can't deny the Zohar. The Zohar is eternal truth. And of course, we all know that in many, many situations, indeed, the head has to govern the heart. So what do? So Chassidut distinguishes between the outer heart and the inner heart. Chitzoniyut halev and pnimiyut halev. And then it says, when the Zohar said that there needs to be moach shalit al halev, that only refers to the outer heart. Chitzoniyut halev. The inner heart is a 4th level. It's above the head. It's not a 3-level ladder, it's a 4-level ladder. And the 4-level ladder, the 4th one becomes the inner heart, pnimiyut halev. And then they went outright and said it, pnimiyut halev shalita ala moach. The inner heart governs the head, should govern the head, can and should govern the head. And then you realize that the head, the intellect, is a mean, an intermediate level to differentiate between the outer heart and the inner heart. The liver doesn't have an inner dimension because it's desires. But or maybe, you know what, maybe, because we know that Moach Lev Kaved, they also correspond to Adam, Chava, and the serpent. Adam was like the intellect, and Chava was like the heart, and the snake was like the liver. And the Adam and the snake were competing over Chava. That's like the heart being torn between the liver, the serpent, and the head, Adam. But we know that Nachash, the serpent, is the gematria of Mashiach. So maybe Mashiach will discover the Pnimiyut Kaved, the inner dimension of the inner Kaved, like the instincts, holy instincts that would be even higher than the Pnimiyut Lev. That's just a thought. But anyway, now we have a 4th level. The 4th level is Pnimiyut Lev. And this is the nearly complete. It's not the full complete, but it's almost the complete axis of the Bariach HaTichon. And now the question is, how do we use this now that we put it all in order, and we know that we have to go from the top down? We have to start with Pnimiyut Lev, and then we need to get to the Moach, the head, the intellect, and then we need to get to the heart, and then we need to get to the liver, and liver would now become the level of behavioral decision-making, actual decision-making. So we need to go through this process. So for this, we have this page that we're now going to open up. I just need to add, for completion's sake, that in other places in Chassidut, there's even mention of a 5th level, and I'm not talking about the liver or what I said about Mashiach, but it said that there's also, above the Lev, there's something called Pnimiyut HaMoach. Pnimiyut HaMoach is this very high intellect. So once again, we have Moach Shalit al Lev, but it's Pnimiyut HaMoach Shalit al Pnimiyut Lev. So we're not going to open that, but I can tell you that what we're going to do now is, it's all about Pnimiyut HaMoach. We're taking a very deep, profound Torah from Pnimiyut Torah, from the inner dimension of the Torah. So this is like in an intellectual endeavor. We're taking some terminology and we're putting it together and we're learning and we're using our heads. But this isn't a regular head. It's not a Talmudic head. It's obviously not a philosophical or scientific head. It's pnimiyut hamoach. We're taking the pnimiyut hamoach of the Torah, the inner brain, the inner intellect of the Torah, the inner concepts of the Torah, and now we're using that in order to go from, once again, pnimiyut halev, moach, lev, kaved. Okay, so what do we have here? We have here what is called in Kabbalah a partuf. Partuf means face, in Greek actually, but it was a Greek word adopted by Chazal. But partuf is not just a face, partuf is a whole countenance. It's the whole like human figure from head to toe. And in Kabbalah it's used to describe a system of concepts that are arranged together based on the Sefirot model. Sefirot model is the template, the blueprint for every complex system and every dynamic in the world. And then we can use it to understand and put together different concepts, different expressions, different idioms, different interpretations of a verse, different opinions in the Talmud. We can do a whole bunch of things using the Sephirotic system. So what Rabbi Ginsburgh did here was something quite amazing that has been, like many other things that he teaches, it's like been waiting for millennia for someone to pick up the pieces and put them together into this puzzle. The puzzle pieces were there, but someone had to piece them together. And that's what he did. What he did was that he took 11 Hebrew idioms that use the word dat. Dat means knowledge. Knowledge is not just information, of course. Knowledge is something very, very deep. The first time the knowledge has to do with the tree of knowledge, and knowledge has to do, the verb to know appears for the first time in V'adam yadda et Chava ishto. Adam knew his wife Eve. So clearly the knowledge here is something that procreates. It's the union between man and woman. So knowledge is something very, very profound. Knowledge is itself one of the Sefirot. We usually know that there are 10 Sefirot, but really if you present the whole thing, the whole system, it would really become 11 Sefirot. And that is a very important one at the very center of it. It connects the intellect with the heart and the liver, or the intellect with the body, or the body of emotions that we have. It's like it corresponds to the neck, or the back of the neck, the back of the head. And it's the union of the intellectual with the emotional and behavioral. So like between the moach and the lev, you have this thing called dat. So that really is all about decision making. That is, I have all kinds of ideas in my head, and I'm thinking, and I'm debating, and then I want to take it, and I want to take it down, and do something about it. I want it to move from my head to my body. So that is the sphere of decision making. But it turns out there are 11 idioms that use the word dat. So said Rabbi Ginsburgh, maybe if you take all those 11 idioms, you can create a whole mini partzuf of what's going on within the one sefirah of dat. Right? An important principle in Kabbalah is that all the sefirot are inter-included. It's like a fractal. If you know a little bit fractal geometry, if you heard about this, fractal geometry is a kind of geometry that the same shape reiterates itself on more and more miniature levels. Right? It's like a tree that branches out, it keeps branching out according to the same algorithm. And one branch looks like a mini tree, and if you take a little branch from that branch, it's also another mini tree. So that's the same algorithm repeating itself. So the same thing happens in the Sefirot. So we have 10 or 11 Sefirot, but each one of them is inter-included by all of them. The whole dynamic is repeated in each one of them. So he said, let's zoom into the dat, and that would give us an understanding of the process of decision making, because that is where decisions are made, right? Moving from the head to the body. And then let's take those 11 idioms and try and put them according to the Sefirot, and see if we can come up with like a pattern or a guide to decision making. So that's what he did. So we'll just go very quickly over the terms, and then we'll start going a little bit more slowly. Maybe we won't get to everything, but we'll get some things. But before we do, there's a little legend at the bottom right corner to remind all English speakers that this is a Hebrew concept, a Kabbalistic Jewish concept, so it's counterintuitive. It's right to left, not left to right. Right? This is very, very weird because the English itself is left to right, but the Kabbalistic Sefirot follow a right to left pattern of moving. So we're moving after the Keter at the top. And I regret not writing the other names in English. I should have put them in English. But for deepening, after deepening, we move to expansion and not to stability. Okay? Right? Based on this, you can write down the arrows. So I'm going to repeat the Hebrew terms. If you want to write them down, it's good to know. So the first level is called Keter Shebadat, the crown within Dat. But that I won't go into from now on because we don't have enough time to go into everything. But the term, the idiom, is ha'amakat hadat, and that's the deepening of knowledge. Ha'amakat hadat, the deepening of knowledge. After that, we have harchavat hadat, the expansion of knowledge. After that, we have yishuv hadat, the stability or situating, sitting, letting the dat reside in somewhere, having it be stable. Then we have hitkashrut hadat, the attachment of knowledge. Then we have kiruv hadat, knowledge having an affinity to something. And then we have nikiyut dat, which is cleanliness of knowledge. That's the precise, literal translation. Nikiyut hadat is cleanliness of that, but it's really objectivity. Then we have shikul hadat, which is weighing. That's the literal meaning is the weighing of knowledge, and that would be appraisal. And then we have hachra'at hadat, and that is resolution. It says resolve, but it should be resolution, just like if there's decision and expansion and so on. So it should be resolution. That's hachra'ah, resolving, making a resolution. Then we have haskamat hadat, the agreement or concurrence of knowledge. And then we have achlatat hadat, the decision of knowledge. And finally, chavat dat, expression of knowledge. Now, in order to get into all of this, we really need to start with the topmost sefirah and the bottommost sefirah, because these are the two endpoints, the beginning and the end. And this is something very beautiful. We said that this all is somehow connected to marriage, to love, relationships, and finding your partner and your spouse, even though, of course, there are many other decisions we need to make. But the first couple in the world were Adam and Chava. Now, their names have meanings. Adam is cognate, it's connected to the word dumiyah. Dumiyah is silence. Chazal told us that 10, what's the word? Kabin, 10 kabin shel sicha. 10, it's like a measurement, 10 measures. 10 measures of speech came into the world, and men took 1 measure and women took 9 measures. That's a Chazal idiom, that they say that women talk more than men do. Here it's even more radical, that men are silent by their nature. Adam is in terms dumiyah. When Adam was alone in Gan Eden, he had no one to talk to. So either he had an inner monologue, or he was silent. But either way, he was silent because there was no one to communicate to. There's something solitary about Adam. He's also, by the way, a little bit trapped. Men are often trapped in their own thoughts and feelings. They don't know how to express them well. So each one of us has a masculine aspect. And in a way, deep down, there's the crown here, the ketel, it's the superconscious of who we are. That would be relatively masculine for everyone. And that, it's something there is silent. It finds it hard to express itself. This is the root of all choices, is this very, very silent, it's like kol dmama daka, the sound of subtle silence that Eliyahu the prophet heard after all the fire and the earthquakes and the wind, that he thought that was the prophecy that he was hearing. But when all that passed, he realized that the real prophecy is something very silent, very subtle. And this subtle voice that's unheard within us, this is the Adam within us. But this Adam has the potential to make decisions, and maybe he knows what he wants, but he doesn't know that he wants this. It's super conscious. It's above he doesn't know what he wants. The will is there. Inside the crown, your will is there. The will of your soul. But you're not conscious of it, so it's silent. Adam is silence. Chava has to do with Chai, because she was called Em Kol Chai, the mother of all living. So Chai, Chava, Yud and Vav are interchangeable. It's also connected to the Aramaic word for snake, which is Chivya, because she got the name Chava post-sin. And she was supposed to be called Chaya, but she was called Chava because the serpent affected her. But Chava is also speech. Yom leyom yabiya omer velayla lelayla yecheve da'at. That's a verse. Yom leyom yabiya omer, one day to another day speaks. Velayla lelayla, and a night also speaks to the other night, but it's a different verb. It's yecheve da'at, the word da'at again. And yecheve is one of the Hebrew words. There are many synonyms. One of the Hebrew words to speak is lechevot. Lechavot dat specifically. So the final level we have here is chavad dat. Chavad dat is that I say to you what my opinion is. This is what I want. It's the opposite of being silent. I know what I want to do, and I'm able to say, this is what I want. I don't want anything else. This is what I want. I'm able to say it. That's the redemption of the dat, of this decision making. So all this process is to get from Adam to Chava, from the silent masculine to the female, the feminine expressing itself. And we all have to undergo this. Just like in the Garden of Eden, we spoke about this in some other class, that in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve were connected on their back. They had to be separated and put together again, and we have to go through the same process. So this is like opening up this process, that there's this inner, hidden, latent will, but I don't know how to express it. I don't even know what it is, and I have to find a way to express it and say it and come out with it. And that is Chava. Chava does know how to make decisions, and she knows how to express her feelings, and Adam doesn't, and we all have both. So now all the other stages are here, intermediate levels. So now let's try and go over them. We can teach this like a whole year, so we're just going to get a little bit points that you can take away, and then you can go on, thinking about this some more. So the first level, which has to do with Adam, is itself one of the stages. This is called the deepening of knowledge. That basically means something very simple. It means you want to make a decision. The first thing you need to do is go deep inside yourself and let go of the external world. You have to close your eyes, to close your ears, just take a breath. And you have to rise above the superficiality of everyday life and try and go deeper and be connected and be attuned to your soul. It's hard. You're not always sure what you're hearing. There are a lot of noises coming inside you. That's okay. But you're trying to get into a little bit of a meditative state. That's the first thing you need to have. It's the deepening of knowledge. Now, the way the Sefirot are built is that now we have 3 times the same pattern, which is based on a right-left-center dynamic. This is similar to the punctuation mark, the nikud mark of segol. Right? Segol is the 3 dots. And this image, this picture, this dynamic is so holy and so deep and so important that in a way we can say that the reason we are called Am Sgula is because we hold this secret of the Segol. We know that nothing is ever linear. We need to go to the right and we need to go to the left, and then we need to balance them and connect them. And every time we make this balance, it's another deepening into our superconscious, because the central levels are part of the central axis. So we have 3 segolim here, 3 dynamics, and they correspond to what we said in the beginning: the head, the heart, and the liver. The first trio, the first segol, that's the head, right? The expansion, stability, attachment. The second trio, affinity, objectivity, appraisal, that would be the heart. And the third one, resolution, concurrence, decision, that would be the liver. And the crown is the inner dimension of the heart. That's the pnimiyut halev. That's the inner heart. That's the crown. So we're starting with, I want to be attuned to my inner heart. And now we have to go through these processes. Now every time, so in every segol, we have two conflicting, contradictory powers that are pulling in other directions, but they're both important and they balance each other out. Then the third stage reconciles them in some way or balances them in some way. Right? And this dynamic repeats itself 3 times. So what is the first couple, the first twin forces that we need to have? So that's called expansion of knowledge and stability of knowledge. What do they mean? Expansion of knowledge is being open to every possibility and I'm open to hearing anything. I'm not negating, I'm not pushing away anything. I'm listening to people, it doesn't threaten me, I'm not making my decision yet, I'm just opening my head, opening my heart, I'm just listening. Ezeu chacham, this is the sphere of chokhmah. Ezeu chacham, halomed mikol adam. Who is the wise man? He who learns, or she, from everyone, every person. Mikol adam. So I need to be open. I have to keep all my channels open. The other side that balances this is being having yeshuv hadat. Stability is being situated in my own place, having the center of gravity within me, so that I don't get pulled away by all these people that I'm listening to. Is being connected, embodied in your own reality, in your own place. Yeshuv hadat, I'm sitting down, I'm restful. If I would only have the expansion of knowledge, I would listen to everyone, it would drive me crazy. If I only have yeshuv hadat, I'm very stable, I'm sitting where I am, I'm being connected to myself, my reality, what's possible for me, what's not possible for me, and so on. But I'm not opening my heart, my head, to new ideas, new possibilities. So I need to have both. And that's like an introduction. All this is just an introduction to the decision-making process. So expand your mind, but also sit in one place. Remember who you are, where you are, and then you can get a feeling for which of these voices or ideas or opinions that I'm listening to are relevant to me or not so relevant, or have nothing to do with me, or I need to consider them. It's all based on being connected to who I am. This is also, by the way, a little bit masculine and feminine, because the expansion of listening to everything is more masculine, and being connected, embodied into your own specific situation, time, and how much time you have to spend on this decision-making process, that's more feminine. Then the attachment would be, okay, so now I listened and I thought, now let's focus on the decision at hand. This is moving from this introductory levels to the actual process, right? The Sephirotic tree is always based on the upper 3 Sephirot that are more abstract, and the lower 7 that are more practical. And the attachment, which is the knowledge of knowledge, dat shebadat, is the transition between the two. So the first, the deepening and the expansion and the stability, it's all just things I need to have in order to go into the actual process. And then I need to attach myself, that is focus on the problem and the decision at hand. I'm not solving 2 problems at the same time. I'm not procrastinating. I'm not saying, oh, it'll be okay, and you know, hoping it'll resolve itself. No, I'm focusing. This is attaching myself to the thing. Now, the lower 7 levels, that's the decision-making itself process. That's the decision-making process itself. And now we come to the most important pair of conflicting, contradictory, but complementary Sephirot. That's the most important one. That's the heart, right? These two here, That's the heart of everything. What does it mean, affinity and objectivity? So affinity is the opposite of objectivity. It's subjective. It's very, very subjectively. What talks to me? What relates to me? What do I feel like? What am I attracted to? This shouts to me, calls to me, choose me, take me. I have affinity with it. I'm not ignoring it. It's totally subjective. I don't know if it's real. I'm not sure, but it's a feeling that I have. This is a feeling of chesed here. It has to do with love, with attraction. I'm being attracted to something, and I have an affinity with it. And it's closest to me. It's precious to me. I want this thing. But this is not a central axis sephira, because it could be very, very misleading. If, for example, you have a pattern of being like, let's say, a girl is constantly, repeatedly attracted to the wrong type of men, then this kind of keruv hadat, right? The expression in Hebrew is keruv. I feel karov, I feel close to something. I want to grow closer to something. It doesn't mean anything. Well, sometimes it means something. That's why it's here. But sometimes it doesn't. So you need the opposite. You need objectivity. And objectivity is here the cleanliness of mind. Nekiyut hadat. When I was doing tshuva many, many years ago, even before I was doing tshuva, really, when I was just going in the direction that later I retrospectively realized was the beginning of tshuva, then I remember very clearly a moment in my life that I was still very secular, but showing a little bit of interest in Yiddishkeit now. And then there was a course in the university that I went to, and we were a whole bunch, almost all of them were secular. There was one religious girl. And then some other girls, she invited everyone to a party at her house in Yerushalayim. And I said, okay, it was right next to where I lived, and I went there. And it was very, very kind of like a very secular party. It was dark and noisy and full of smoke and everything. And then this religious girl came, because the other girl invited everyone in the course. And she came in, she had a culture shock. She was like, and she told me I was never in a party like this. And I told her, you're not missing out on so much. And then we went out to the balcony. It was more quiet, and we spoke. And yeah, it was very nice talking. I don't remember what happened, but I remember that afterwards, I went home. It was Jerusalem. It was a bit cool in the evening, and I told myself there was something very different about this conversation than other conversations I had in similar situations. And I tried to pinpoint what it was. What was different about this conversation? And then it hit me that it was the first time in my adult life that I had a long conversation with a girl in a kind of party situation, or not professional, or study in the evening in a party, knowing absolutely for sure that there's not going to be any physical touch because she was religious. And in all the other situations, there was maybe, or the tension, or you want it, you don't want it, or you think it, all this. And it's usually considered more exciting and more, it creates attention to life. But here I realized we had a whole conversation, and from the very beginning, I knew for sure that physically nothing is going to happen because she's religious. And we could just talk. And then I didn't know it at the time, but I realized that this is nikiyut hadat. This is the cleanliness of mind, lucidity of mind. That it's like suddenly when the air condition goes off and you realize how noisy it was before. You don't notice the noise, it's there all the time. But if you switch it off, suddenly you realize there's this quiet. So that's in a way nikiyut hadat. And also it has to do with Yerushalayim, by the way. The expression in the Talmud is Nekiyei hadat sheBYerushalayim, the cleanly of mind, or the clean of mind of Jerusalem. Jerusalem was a place that people considered themselves to have cleanliness of mind. Cleanliness of mind is being very objective about something. By the way, what is a Hebrew word for subjectiveness? Subjectivity, being subjective about something. In Hebrew, it's called nogea ladavar. When you touch something, you have a bias. You're associated with the thing. It concerns you This is called nogea ladavar. You touch it. So if you touch something, you're close to it. You have kiruv adat. You have an affinity. If you're too close to something, you're subjective. You need to step back. Take a step backwards. You have to look at it from a distance. Then you're clean, you have this cleanliness, and you're objective. So the heart of the decision making is weighing. That's the next stage. The weighing, the appraisal, is you weigh, and this is, of all the terms here, probably the most used in Hebrew today, is shikul dat, the weighing of knowledge. You should have a shikul dat. You should have a good sense of how to make decision makings. So you have to weigh the subjective affinity of feeling close to something, or maybe wanting to run away from it. Even if you want to run away from something, it's because you're very close to it. If you're far away from it, you just ignore it. If you're running away from it, it means you feel that it's running after you in some way. Either way, it's an affinity. It could be a positive affinity that I'm attracted to it. It could be a negative affinity that I'm repelled by it. Either way, it's a subjective feeling. It has to do with being too close to it emotionally, too bound up with it. But objectivity, I'm not swayed in either way. So the weighing of knowledge is I need to weigh, because I'm not ignoring my affinity. My subjective affinity is something important, but I need to balance it with a lot of objectivity. I'm drawn to someone, but objectively I can see that it's really problematic to go with that someone. But I am drawn. So then something really interesting happens. Then I can say, well, why am I drawn to this person? Then I can pinpoint. If I wouldn't use the objectivity element, I would just go with it. But now that I have the objective element, then I can say, well, that's wrong and that's it. But that's only being objective. If I want to balance them, then I objectively look at why it is that I'm attracted to this thing. And then I can maybe extract that thing that I'm interested in. And using this subjective perspective, I can say, well, the reason I was attracted to that person or thing is because of that property or quality or thing. And then maybe I can find it in someone that objectively is better. Because only subjectivity would obviously lead me astray, but only objectivity is also wrong, because only being objective is ignoring the fact that you're drawn to some things and you're not drawn to other things. But working together, that's the weighing. And the weighing is really the heart, or the appraisal. Yeah.
Would you say that objectivity and subjectivity is like the heart and the brain?
No, this is both in the heart. But there is...
Within the earth, you have parts of it that is...
Yes, that's part of the heart. Yes, the gevura. So chesed is coming near to something, and gevura is knowing. It's also emotional. It's guarding yourself. It's an emotional thing. It's a heart thing. The objective part comes from guarding yourself against being taken or losing yourself in something or someone. And it has to do with boundaries. It's also emotional. They're both emotions. The feeling of affinity and wanting to be objective. But in a way, you can say that gevura, or the objectivity, is more connected to the intellect than the subjectivity, obviously, because the head is more objective than the heart. Now, final word about now let's talk a little bit about the third trio, the third segol. That's another important lesson to be learned from here. So the next stage is resolution. So that sounds like I weigh the situation. I looked at what I'm attracted to and what my objective side says. And then I come up with a resolution, a decision. Right? A resolution and decision sound synonymous, but here they're two different things. In Hebrew, it's hachra'ah and achlata. Even in Hebrew, it sounds synonymous. It's the same. In English and Hebrew, resolution and decision. New Year resolution, New Year decision. What's the difference? So there is a difference, because between the resolution and the decision, another stage has to come, which is concurrence. What do we mean by this? In here, maybe the head and the heart would be different. The head is on the right and the heart is on the left. Resolution it's almost the decision. And yet it's not the decision. Why? Because whenever you make a resolution, there's a part of you that's doubtful if it's the right thing to do. As you're making it, you're hearing another side that's telling you, no, don't do it. And they say, no, I made the resolution. But the other side is nagging you, that maybe it's wrong, maybe it's not the right thing. Now you've passed the appraisal. It's a voice that's coming back from like a previous stage. I weighed it all down. I listed the pros and the cons. I sat with myself. I did it, and I made a resolution. Why are you stopping me from going directly from resolution to decision? Or having resolution and decision be the same thing? So, the part of you that is resistant is the part that the decision you're making right now, it doesn't address so much. Every decision is you're choosing something and you're letting go of something else. So part of you wants that something else. And it's frustrated, it's bitter. And the bitterness rises. Now, you already know what the right decision is, because you've passed the resolution. But it would be a mistake to jump from resolution to decision and ignore the bitter part of you that you're not following now. You're not following that advice. You shouldn't go back. It's not like you're saying, rethink everything. No. You're past the rethinking. You thought it through. But you need to address the bitter part that hasn't accepted it. You need it to even a little bit concur with you. You need to appease it. You need to talk to the part of you that you haven't decided in its favor. Right? You have two voices, and then you decide that this voice is true, and the other voice is not so true. But the other voice is also part of you. So you need to calm them. You need to calm that part down. You tell them, I know that's not what you wanted. I know you were hoping for something else. I know you dreamt many nights. You dreamt of this other thing, and I'm not going there. I know you're part of me, so I know it's all me. But I want to tell you something. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You're going to find your dream will be fulfilled in another way, in some other form, in some other stage of life. And I love you. You're part of me. And until it's quiet, it's like a little kid. Until it's quiet and it says, okay. Or maybe it doesn't say okay. Maybe it's just silent. But there has to be a little bit of a concurrence. And then you can do the decision. So the beautiful thing about this final trial is that you would think that resolution and decision are the same thing, but beautifully enough, and this is the Sephirah of concurrence is called the Hod. Hod has to do with being grateful and thankful, and also admitting mistakes. Hoda'ah, admitting weakness, admitting failure, and being grateful about it. So this part of you fails. It failed. It tried to have the decision go its way. It didn't work. So now it's the losing side, right? Resolution is netzach. Netzach is victory. It's victorious. Netzach is the victorious side, and Hod is the losing side. But you have to make sure that the losing side doesn't feel like a loser, and isn't ignored. So you need to get its concurrence. That it also agrees that this is the best decision for all of us put together, all of the different parts. And then you can go to the decision. The decision here is the post-concurrence the resolution. Or it's really deciding something now that we're all, so you can tell your inner voices, so we're all going with this, right? And again, you don't expect that the other part to be excited. It's not excited, but this is telling you, okay. And so once I gave this to a bunch of teachers, and we're talking about helping couples get married, and then there was one teacher, he was very angry about this. He said, no. I know so many men who, if I would have told them that the part of them that resisted the shidduch needs to concur, they would never have gotten married. They need to totally ignore that part and just go ahead. he wanted to erase the concurrence from this whole diagram. And he was very adamant. He started writing me emails. And
how was that part acting out?
and it was and I tried to now. I even remember involving Rabbi Ginsburgh with this, but I don't remember what he said. But anyway, it's here. It's part of the thing, and I think he said something like the person said, like, if you're doing a vote, and then those who don't have enough votes, they lose, but they lose. They don't concur. You have to. It's like you have this democracy, and the majority wins, or those who have enough power, they win, and don't expect the losing side to concur with you in some way. So the only thing I have to say to this is that there are levels of concurrence. That's why I think I said it can maybe it's only even silent, or the part has to, you have to address it in some way. I still think that. Even those boys that are getting married, those guys, and they have a hard time, and they need their rabbi or their mashpia to tell them this is the way to go. It's even then, don't totally ignore that part that's resistant. You need to address it in some way. Right? That's the concurrence. That's the askama.
Maybe a good word is mourn.
Maybe mourning is one way. Yeah? Maybe mourning. Definitely have to mourn.
Otherwise it comes back strong.
Exactly. So the thing is that if you don't do it, it's going to come back with a vengeance. That's part of the deep wisdom that's in this whole structure, is that adding this little thing, right? Hod is the most Jewish Sephirah, because Hod is Yehudi. And it's a Jewish, you have to be, Jews are they have compassion, they have mercy. So you show compassion to the part of you that you're not going in its favor, you're addressing it. Okay, and then you can get to the real decision, and the decision in many ways is the hardest part, the yesod, foundation. This is where it's like the funnel for all the different forces. It has to do also with circumcision. Circumcision is like, I'm going for something, I'm cutting something away, it's hard. That's like the decision making. And then I can go ahead and express it and say it and do it. Expression is also doing. Right? Chavad Da'at is going ahead and actualizing the decision.
Chavad is the practical, it's not necessarily verbal.
Yeah, it's not as, yeah. No, the meaning of chava is verbal. It's to speak, as opposed to dumiya adam, which is silence. But speaking is, we have an expression in English, action speaks louder than words, right? Action is also speech. So it's speaking in actions. So this was our brief little tour of the parts of decision making, the art of Hasidic decision making. And I hope you gain some wisdom out of this, and this will help you, as it has helped me in some situations in my life, make better decisions. I would add one final little thing, is it's not as if every time you make a decision you have to pick up this page again and go, you can try it, and then go over all the things and maybe write it down. It depends how much time you have to make the decision. But that's not the thing. The thing is that the more you learn this and you internalize it, it becomes like second nature. And also, there were like little insights that we had throughout that you can use in all kinds of different ways. But the thing is that the more you internalize generally Chassidut, the more you learn Chassidut, there's a lot of concepts and words and ideas and models, the more they become absorbed in your bloodstream, you can say, then, and this goes back to David's question from before, the more you can actually make instinctive decisions. Because your instincts are refined. The whole point of Chassidut is to refine your senses of what's right and wrong, of what's profound and shallow, of what's holy and profane, of what advances you and what pulls you backwards. And the more you refine your senses, then the more you can actually trust your real instincts. And you can trust your instincts to go all the way to come from your pnimiyut halev. You'll make mistakes, and you learn from them, and you go back. But it's a lifetime of work of refining. And we spoke about Adam and Chava. Adam and Chava, where did they live? They lived in Gan Eden. What is Eden? Eden is refinement, subtlety, tenderness, adinut. So going back to Gan Eden, going back to the Garden of Eden, has to do with the refining our attributes and our senses. Idun hamidot and idun hachushim. And then Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava can remarry, and they can say that was the best decision of our lives. That we got married and we found each other, and it's the best decision I've made in my life. Hi everyone, if you enjoyed this episode, please press like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. If you want more English language videos from me, please consider becoming a supporter via Patreon. You can find the link in the description below. Thank you very much, and see you in the next episode.